Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Bundesliga Show, brought to you by Over the Bar. Welcome back after another dreaded and long international break. Thankfully, it's gone now. I think that it's not one for another 5 months, so we're Bundesliga through and through now, week on week. Back to review another match day 12. Of course, really. Big results at both ends of the table, lots to talk about, and we've got a guest again, so lots to get through. Of course, this video is done in partnership with Bundesliga Boxes. As you can see, I'm sporting my fetching Darmstadt t-shirt that came with my latest Bundesliga boxes. And of course, we did a brilliant giveaway with them recently. So go check them out on Twitter or on their website to see if you can get your hands on some last minute Christmas boxes, because I know they're going like hotcakes, and there's some really good beanies and bobble hats up for grabs. So go check them out. And of course, if you're new to the channel, welcome along. If you're a returning regular of ours, welcome back as always. Drop a like. Comment along in the live section if you can do, and of course drop us a subscribe if possible, and make sure you click the bell icon to make sure you don't miss out on any brilliant shows that we're bringing to you. Right, and before we get to bring in our guest, let's quickly run through the scores and then we'll crack on with the show. So Mark, over to you with some scores.
Yeah, so let's start with the Friday night game. Obviously, Augsburg famously beating Bayern Munich 2-1 at home with a great start to the weekend. Yeah, Dortmund beating Rory's boys Stuttgart 2-1, another defeat for the Stuttgarters. Yeah, Leverkusen getting a rare win recently, 1-0 over Bochum. Yeah, Gladbach hammering Fürth again. Yeah, it's another defeat for Fürth now. Obviously, 11 out of 12 games they've lost now. Not the best start to the season, is it? Hoffenheim with a really, really impressive 2-0 win over RB Leipzig. Yeah, then obviously the draw between Bielefeld and Wolfsburg, entertaining game there. The Berlin derby on Saturday evening ended up in a 2-0 win for Union over Hertha. Then moving on to the Sunday games of Frankfurt, back-to-back wins now with a 2-0 win, impressive 2-0 win in Freiburg, who were previously unbeaten at home. And then, yeah, we ended the weekend with a 1-1 draw between Mainz and FC Cologne.
Yeah, good stuff. So scores on the doors done nice and quickly. So let's crack on the show and let's introduce our guests. So we've got a Hoffenheim fan who runs the Twitter account Hoffenheim Fan Club UK. His name is Ryan, and let's bring him in right now. Let's do it. Good evening, Ryan. How are you?
Good, thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you very much for joining us. So yeah, you're obviously big Hoffenheim fan. Without again spoiling the show, obviously we will talk a little bit about Hoffenheim and Ryan's association with the club. But yeah, very thankful to have you on this evening, Ryan, for you to give up your time. But obviously, before we talk Hoffenheim, let's see where they appear in the featured four. Of course, they're going to appear in the featured four, or else we wouldn't have a Hoffenheim fan on. So, Mark, over to you. Let's start the countdown over to featured four.
Yeah, so let's start. Obviously, nowadays we do the countdown with our top 4 games of the weekend. Obviously, we started that a few weeks ago, and we're going to continue with that again today. So, yeah, starting with game 4. I mean, it was a pretty entertaining game, wasn't it, really? I mean, it ended up in a 2-0 win for Union Berlin in the Berlin derby. Obviously, this game getting more and more coverage with every single edition that it has, this derby. I think, obviously, we did our Derby Day show, didn't we, I think a year ago now, Rory? And we were saying that this is a derby that really needs to kind of kick off and get more traction, really. And it's definitely doing so. You know, you saw a full house, obviously, in the east part of Berlin for Union. A great atmosphere at the game, but obviously Union taking the spoils in the end. So, Ryan, did you see much of that game, and what did you make of it?
Yeah, so actually I watched the game without commentary, which is a bit of a weird thing to do nowadays. But obviously I haven't got Sky at home, so I had to find some kind of way of watching it. And the atmosphere is just what takes that game really well. And obviously the Union fans are, I think, maybe up there with maybe the best in the league, and probably gave them that little bit extra on the day. I don't think that Hertha were really at the race at all. For me, they've got maybe two of the most well-known outside the top four strikers in Piontek and Jovic. Both players that I've always rated, but both have never really delivered at any club they've been at.
Yeah, very much so. And speaking of not really being on the ball, I think we can straight away refer to the first goal of the game coming after 9-10 minutes. A bit of a hopeful ball forward from Union. And unfortunately for Paul Dardai, his son was the man to make the mistake, flapping at the bouncing ball, trying to go with his stronger foot when he should have gone with probably his weaker foot in order to clear the ball properly, bounces underneath, allowing that man Awonyi onto the ball, and he makes no mistake from just on the edge of the area to slot home to make it 1-0. And from there on in, I guess it was fairly plain sailing really for Union, obviously. But let's now kind of talk about, I suppose, the couple of main talking points from this game, and we'll throw it over to you, Ryan, to maybe make your decisions on what you thought about them. So we'll start with the second goal for Union, which is probably the first dodgy bit, I think you can maybe say. So a corner comes out, swings all the way out to Trimmel, smashes it home. Really great strike. But there's obviously a VAR check for what looks like to be interference. I'm not sure who the player was actually, but there's an Union player dangling his foot out, trying to get his foot on it, and he was in potentially an offside position. So we'll just start with that one first, Ryan. What did you think of that? Did you see that as interference and maybe Hertha hard done by?
When I first saw it, I thought it was going to be a disallowed goal. I thought VAR would probably chalked it off. I think when you watch the Premier League nowadays, and probably around other European leagues, that they care for the goalkeepers too much and probably give them the benefit of doubt. But it was a nice strike, wasn't it? Let's be honest, from the edge of the area.
So yeah, probably deserved to have it just based on the strike, didn't he? And so going into half time, 2-0, and then just before half time, looks like the game's maybe swinging the other way. Probably the most critical part of the game, where Hertha swinging across, really poorly dealt with by Luther in there, just punches it basically high up in the air, and it's headed home by Peter Pekarik. But the celebrations put on hold because there's another VAR check, and this one's got a sting a lot because it's then taken all the way back to the start of the move, I think, where it is deemed that Piatek is offside by the skin of his teeth. Again, Ryan, that's probably the game-changing moment, isn't it? If Hertha get a goal just before half-time, they can use the momentum and maybe push on and get a result.
Yeah, I think massively. I think that you're 2-1 down at half-time. I think you could probably come back into that. I think 2-0 down is a completely different story. There's 3 goals that will be scored thereafter, or even 2, just for a draw, where one after half-time's okay. I think the goal would have been given maybe 2-3 seasons ago.
Yep.
This season with VAR and last season with VAR, it's just it's hairs in the way that just you're offside.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the rest of the game, Hertha showed maybe a glimpse very early doors in the second half, but after that it was fairly plain sailing. Geraldo Becker could have got a third late on, couldn't he? But Union looking more and more impressive week on week. Ryan, do you want to maybe just talk about if you're impressed by A, what Union are doing, and then B, what are Hertha doing wrong so much all the time?
I think I had Union down last year for bottom of the league.
Wow.
So that went well. And I think this year I had them down as about 14th. I think last year I had Hertha as European. I think this year I had them about 9th. So my guess is not very good. So
yeah, slightly wrong way around, isn't it?
Yeah, they're having, I think one's in turmoil and one just a continuing momentum that from last season that just, I know the European form's not brilliant, but they're not used to playing week in, 2 games a week, and they have got hard opposition against, especially Feyenoord. if they can keep it up in the Bundesliga and stay top 10, I think they'll be happy with that.
Yeah, agreed. And Hertha with such massive kind of hopes behind them and quite a lot of money behind them. Do you think it's maybe that it's about time that they change the head coach?
They've lost a lot. It's like sort of 5 in 4 years now for them. I think it's probably they've got to do it at some point. But when do you say it's too soon to get rid of a manager nowadays?
Good question. Right, moving on then.
Yeah, I think obviously at the end of the game as well, there was a lot of crowd trouble, which kind of made the German news as well. I think the Hertha fans were pretty cheesed off, for lack of a better word, with the performance. And at the end, they kind of set off some flares. And I think they even tried to throw a couple of flares on the pitch as well at the end of the game. Obviously, a pretty poor performance, all said and done, really, by Hertha in a big derby like that as well, And I think, obviously, Hertha fans weren't particularly pleased with what they'd seen. So, yeah, a bit of naughtiness, so to speak, at the end of the game, You can't beat that in the derby, really, but it's all part of the experience. Yeah. Okay, yeah. So let's move on to game 3 of the weekend. I mean, this was a really entertaining game, to be honest. It could have been a bit higher up if it wasn't for the other 2 games as well. But yeah, I mean, Bielefeld 2, Wolfsburg 2. Really entertaining game. I thought that Bielefeld flew out of the blocks really, really well, And obviously, as the German media were calling him, the Patrick Wimmer, the man in the mask. He was wearing one of those kind of face masks. Dribbled past about 4 Wolfsburg players and threaded through a beautiful assist, really, for Okugawa, which I thought was a really, really good goal to open the scoring for Bielefeld. I mean, it didn't look like Wolfsburg were at the races at first at all, did it? I mean, I thought they started really, really poorly in the game. Obviously, Kohfeldt had won, his first 3 games in all comps. So, yeah, obviously, he was probably looking a little bit worried at halftime when they went in 1-0. Then, obviously, a slightly soft penalty, I thought, for the foul on, it was Schürpf. I thought it was a little bit soft, the penalty, personally, but obviously Fabian Klos really, really well, rolling it home. He doesn't do much well, really, in the Bundesliga, but he can take a good penalty, can't he? That's for sure, Fabian Klos, for his 3rd goal of the season. But then, I mean, Ryan, the game just completely turned at 2-0, didn't it? It was just turned on its head, really, this one.
I think the problem is not a problem, but I think the thing with Wolfsburg is they have got star players in their team still, like Waghorst and Back, who can turn games on their heads in an instant. And obviously, he was there for obviously the first goal, and Lucas was obviously there for the second, and it just speaks volumes to the kind of there's a difference between class between Bielefeld and Wolfsburg, and I think that's what's told in the second half.
Yeah, I think the substitution of Dodi Lukebakio as well. I thought he was brilliant. I mean, actually, Wolfsburg, both of Wolfsburg's goals were class, to be honest. The assist that Lukebakio got for the Weghorst tap-in, I thought was really, really quality. A player that's not always done it. And I think a few people were a bit shocked when Lukebakio signed for Wolfsburg from Hertha Berlin, really, in the summer. But I mean, I think he has been pretty good in recent times, especially since Kohfeldt came in. And then Rory, how good was the equaliser? That was a great goal, wasn't it?
Oh, smashing finish, wasn't it? Yeah. So more good work by another substitute. So this time it was Philip who put in Nemecha and blast it past Ortega in net. Cracking finish that to make it 2-2, and then obviously the momentum is with the away side, and Ortega, steady as always, important, vital, whatever word you want to use. He is irreplaceable for Bielefeld, isn't he, really? So, just goes to show the importance of having a good goalkeeper, and that can be the difference. Ryan, what do you think about Bielefeld's chances? Obviously another good point, but it's so many games that they've drawn. I think they're a joint highest amount of draws with Frankfurt and Köln, I think, with 6. So it's obviously those crucial extra points that they're missing out on.
I think you're looking at it, there's one other space available really for automatically relegation, and it'll be a battle between those teams, who goes down, who can hold their nerve. Obviously Bielefeld are had it last season. So whether they can do it again 2 seasons in a row. Obviously, Augsburg have been doing it for God knows how long they've been doing it for.
Yeah.
For donkey's years, and they seem to keep doing it. So who knows? I think it's between them and Augsburg still in my eyes.
I'm glad you didn't say Stuttgart there, Ryan. Hopefully, when we get Kalajdzic back, we'll be banging in the goals left, right, and centre. We'll see. But yeah, unfortunate for Bielefeld. But as you quite rightly mentioned there, Ryan, quality does tell, and they got hit twice very quickly, unfortunately, and probably, obviously, like I said, had Ortega to thank for getting them a point. So let's move on now to game number 2, and let's see who it is.
Yeah, just another point as well. I think one of our regulars as well has given us a nice comment as well. Yeah, patriotic Irish BVB said, yeah, he doesn't rate any BSC. Obviously, Hertha Berlin, he means Bar Mittelstadt and young Dardai, the centre half, obviously who made the mistake for the first goal, but he does look quite promising. Maybe Stark to a push. The rest of the team is poor, so I can't blame the gaffer Dada. Yeah. I mean, they do seem to be one of those sides, they spend quite a lot of money, but most of the signings don't come good. That's the problem with them, I mean, it seems like whoever they sign, they're a little bit of a poison chalice, really, aren't they? I mean, I think, as Ryan said earlier, they do have some pretty high-profile players like Piotek and Jovetic and the like. But, I mean, they just don't seem to do it for them on a regular enough basis, do they? And, I mean, it's just... yeah, they're just one of those clubs that just don't seem to be able to push on and really make any progress. That's the problem with them, really, But it could be partly to do with the team. I agree that Mittelstadt is a good player. I do like him as well. But, I mean, the rest of the team just kind of, underperform week in, week out. Obviously, the occasional good performance, but it tends to be more miss than hit, let's just say, with Hertha Berlin. Okay, yeah, so let's move on to our second game, and it is Ryan's team as well. It's going to be Hoffenheim versus RB Leipzig. I mean, from a neutral watching this game, I mean, I've got to say, what a performance from Hoffenheim. I thought they were absolutely brilliant in this game. And to be honest, 2-0, it should have been a lot more, shouldn't it, Ryan, really?
We beat Cologne 5-0, and I still think this is our best performance of the season.
Yeah.
I think it speaks volumes.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought they were really, really good. I mean, obviously, the first goal was a mistake by Peter Golazzi, the Leipzig goalkeeper, coming straight from the corner, and then your big centre-half just headed it home, didn't he? But then I thought after you got the goal to go 1-0 up, I thought you were absolutely brilliant in the game, to be honest. It was a great performance. Any players really stood out there, Ryan? Any performances for you from Hoffenheim players that stood out?
For me, I think it was more the team as a whole. I think that obviously De Boer and Ruta coming in for obviously Kramaric and Bangarner was a massive thing. They're two of our most important players that are out of the team. And the two that came in performed to such a high standard that you didn't feel like you were missing 2 players. You felt like, actually, these players can probably do it without them going forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Quite rightly mentioned the amount of players that you were missing. Obviously, not only were you missing Kramaric, Baumgartner, Skoff, and Rudy as well, who have had their good games in the Hoffenheim shirt. So obviously looking at the game, RB, I think I've read it as RB Leipzig didn't turn up and they were lackluster, but I think you'd like to maybe give more credit to Hoffenheim and say they didn't allow RB to do that. Just goes to show with the second goal, they've kind of beaten RB at their own game, a high press, which is done brilliantly by Dabur, who obviously is a player that came in to the into the Matchday 11 and finishes off really well to make it 2-0. And as Mark said, it probably could have been way more than 2. So obviously with that in mind, Ryan, these two we kind of said in our prediction show on Thursday, these two are often quite difficult to predict in terms of what you might expect from them both. So obviously let's forget RB Leipzig for now. We're here to talk about Hoffenheim and your team.
Yeah.
So what makes them such a hard prospect to play against at home? And then let's talk about their inconsistencies after that.
I don't know what is with home. I couldn't tell you what the main thing is to do with home. I think that there's just momentum at home at the moment.
Yeah.
Because the squad at the moment, it changes from week to week. You don't know who's injured, who's not injured. You watch a press conference and someone who's injured, someone's nearly getting match fit. So I think that's the main thing for us would be if we had a full strength squad the whole season, which we haven't had since 2 seasons ago, really. I think last season we had many COVID cases that knocked players out, obviously, for a long, long time. And the season before we got into Europe. So if we had a full strength side, would we be pushing? On paper, yes, I think we'd be pushing for European football, maybe not Champions League, but maybe I think possibly Europa League or Conference.
Good stuff. And so, obviously, quite rightly say, I think our Hoffenheim squad, full strength, looks really dangerous on paper. Going forward, obviously, look quite dangerous. There are a few players that, for me, kind of quite hit and miss. One enigma that comes to mind is Ilas Bebu. Me and Mark often have kind of moments where we're cursing him because he does a lot of things so well, and then he gets to the last minute and he either fluffs his lines or does something silly. So is there an over-reliance, is what I'm getting onto. Is there an over-reliance on Kramaric to produce either a goal or an assist, which has been more the case in terms of assists this season?
I can't speak enough of De Boer. The back of my shirt's got De Boer on it. I think he's a natural goal scorer for me. He's a player that he won't. On obviously Saturday, he won the ball back and scored a lovely goal. But you don't normally see him do that from season to season. He's just a goal that kind of poaches his goals. Kramaric obviously does a lot more for the team. Going forward, Kramaric is into the last year of his contract. If we don't get that signed, are we in a little bit of trouble? Potentially, I think we will be in a bit of trouble. But then Rutter is a player that is coming through the ranks that can potentially fill that spot after, obviously, the weekend.
Absolutely. And then a couple more questions before we move on. So for me, I want to know your thoughts on the current head coach. So Sebastian Hoeneß, he... At one point last season, he looked like he was gone, but then he got backed and he went on a good run of form. Hoffenheim went on a good run of form and is kind of forgotten about. So do you see Hoeneß's job being under threat by way of, a bottom half finish this season? Or do you think it would take a little bit more than that to see him gone?
I think a bottom half finish would see him gone. I think last season was a test for him, and we should have done better in Europe. Obviously, getting Mulder, I think, on paper, obviously, football's a game. Nothing to tell you what can happen on the day, but we should be winning those games against lower league teams, basically. I think we got 12th, 13th underneath that. I think his job will seriously be under scrutiny, to say the least. I think if you start losing a few games, which he does, and then wins 1 or 2, he kind of picks up again, and then it gets forgotten about.
Yeah. Last question on the head coach then. If it's not Hoeneß, who would you like to see in the job? Who do you think can take Hoffenheim to the next level, if there is one achievable?
I don't know. That's like picking a rabbit out of a hat nowadays. If we start getting really deep down there, maybe Big Sam could do a job. I don't know.
Love that. Absolutely. Why not?
Yeah.
Sorry, final question then on Hoffenheim. Whilst we've got you here, Ryan, we always like to ask our guests just really on the reason we know why they ended up supporting the team that they do. So, Ryan, I think you were kind of talking about before we went live. Would you like to share with everyone how you ended up becoming a Hoffenheim fan?
Yeah. So basically, in 2014, I went traveling around Australia, and I lived with a German guy, and we stayed up until the early hours of the morning watching the World Cup in Brazil. 2016, that was. It would be 2016. Many years ago it was. And then we just swapped teams from then. And from then on, I've supported Hoffenheim and he supported my English club, which is West Ham.
That is a a good trade, I'd say. Certainly in terms of the joy that he'll be getting from West Ham at the moment. Certainly, maybe Ryan, you've been suffering the inconsistencies of Hoffenheim since.
There's been a few years there where West Ham haven't been very good, and Hoffenheim have been in Champions League. I think I'm a bit more lucky than you in the last few years.
Yeah, very true. Good stuff. We've just got a couple of comments that have come in here just to go through before we move on to game number 1 of the match weekend. So let's just start off with John's question here has come in. So we'll just throw this over to you, Ryan. So what's the best ground you've been to in Germany and why, if you have, of course, and which ground do you most want to go to for a game? So Ryan, over to you. Have you been to many games in Germany to see Hoffenheim at all, or kind of any grounds that stick out to you in general?
Yeah, me and my dad went over there for a big weekend a few years ago.
Lovely.
And my favourite ground was actually Stuttgart.
Oh, there we go.
we had a great time over there. I thought the fans were great and accepting, and really, honestly, the atmosphere was brilliant down there. And compared to England, I think you get Matchday experience-wise, you have a really good time. We really enjoyed it.
Perfect. Glad to hear it. What's on your bucket list then, Ryan, in terms of grounds that you haven't been to then?
Well, me and my cousin have got a flight booked out to Berlin in January. So all goes well, we'll be over to the Union game versus Hoffenheim. Going well, obviously, everything's going on.
Good stuff. Well, that'll be a cracking atmosphere for you to enjoy. Absolutely. Mark, you've got any grounds on your bucket list to tick off? Probably be easy.
I mean, obviously, I have been to a few grounds over here in Germany. I've got to say that like Allianz Arena is like really impressive. Yeah, in terms of like aesthetically, the Allianz is like really, really an impressive stadium. Obviously, my number 1 stadium has to be FC Nuremberg. I mean, I've also actually seen. I've never been to a game at the SAP Arena, Hoffenheim Stadium, but I've seen the ground. It's literally a weird one because it's in the middle of like a village, basically Hoffenheim. It's like it's not near a big city. Like you're just driving on the motorway in Germany, and you just see like a massive stadium on your right side, and it's the SAP Arena. Is it still called the SAP Arena? Or at least it was then. But it's But it's really interesting. Really, obviously they hosted Champions League football. Obviously Dietmar Hopp like kind of building up the owner of SAP, obviously building up the club. But it's quite an interesting one, really, because I think there's no kind of equivalent in England, really, just like kind of village club in the Premier League, So it's kind of a special thing, really, Hoffenheim, really. It's but I'd have to say the Max Morlock Stadium in Nuremberg, of course, because I am an FCN fan, Obviously, we're not in the Bundesliga now, but yeah, hopefully next year we will be.
Good stuff. Over to another question from Chris, more of a visual question. So don't know if it's been asked before this season, but which team has the best or nicest home kit this season? There's a few nice ones out there. I tend to say I quite like Freiburg's. Quite a fresh number. I'm not sure what other ones really stand out for me. Dortmund usually have good ones. I'm actually quite a fan of Stuttgart's one this season. It's quite fresh and clean cut. Ryan, do you like your kit this season?
Yeah, I think I think Joe would do one of the best kits. I think it's a smart little number. I think apart from import tax, I'm not going to be getting that anytime soon. But apart from that, I think that Frankfurt's kit's always a classic, smart kit for me. Always quite a little bit special.
Yeah, good stuff. Mark, what's your favourite this year?
Yeah, for me, I go with Leverkusen. I always like Bayer Leverkusen's kits. I don't know why, but I think the black and the red just kind of, I don't know, it goes together well. I just really like Bayer Leverkusen's kits. Yeah, so I always think it's a smart one. Even back from like years ago, they've always had pretty nice kits for me.
Yeah, very true. I think I've got a Leverkusen Leverkusen kit from last season, the red and yellow one, quite fresh actually.
It is nice. Yeah.
Right, a couple more questions to come in. One or two both come in from two different people, but we'll use Steve's question coming in here for Ryan. So out of interest to you, Ryan, what attracted you to Hoffenheim? Obviously, we've heard the story that you just swapped teams effectively. 40k seated stadium in a town of 10k population, sponsored by the most frustrating computer softwares in the world. So what would you say to this, Ryan? What, other than the kind of swapping, what kind of attracted you to Hoffenheim?
I think that it's an underdog story, really. I think that people will point to Hop's obviously investment, but I think if you look at the transfers, which obviously I've done a piece on before, that you will see that there is money going out of the club from transfers that is investment-wise very profitable, and I think it's a very well-run club. So an underdog story for me is always a bit more attractive than, I don't know, a Bayern or a Dortmund, I say, without getting slandered.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely fine. You're allowed to say that, Ryan. Not a problem. You can, defend your team, absolutely. But obviously, in response to that, about Hoffenheim being maybe not one of the most popular teams in Germany, would you say that it can just be personal preference, can't it? And if you're a Hoffenheim fan, you're there as a fan and to enjoy the club and possibly see it go forward and stuff. So I guess you're just happy being, I guess you're just happy being part of the journey. Righty-ho, one more question I think we've got here from Matteo. So thank you for your question, Matteo. Apart from Olmo and Angelino, who is the best Spanish player in the Bundesliga? Ooh, that's a good question, actually, Matteo. I don't think the league is flooded with loads of Spanish players, is it really? Obviously, Olmo and Angelino are probably standout players. I struggle to think of.
I think last year I would have said Santa Maria from Freiburg, but obviously he got sold, didn't he, in the summer? Yeah, he was a really good player. I think he went to a French club, I think, in the end. But yeah, he was a Spaniard who was pretty impressive, but I'm not sure where he ended up going to in the end. But it's I liked him.
Yeah, absolutely. Ryan, can you think any off the top of your head? I'm struggling, to be honest.
I'm struggling to think of many Spanish players in the Bundesliga, if I'm being really honest.
There aren't many at all.
No,
for sure.
Unfortunately, there aren't many, Matteo. Maybe we should start pushing to see more Spanish players in the Bundesliga. Of course, technically brilliant, especially Olmo and Angelino. They're brilliant additions to the league. They bring a lot of technical brilliance. Obviously, both play for the same team as well. So maybe we need to start pushing to see a few more Spanish players in the league. Doobie-doos. I'm not sure if we've got any other questions coming in. I think we've just got a couple more comments. So we'll move on. We'll get the first game of our featured forward done and dusted. Then we'll move on to the talking point of the week.
Yeah, so I guess there's no better game to choose this week, obviously, than probably the shock of the season so far. Maybe one of the biggest shocks since we've been doing the Bundesliga show, I mean, Augsburg, who started the game 17th place. I mean, to be fair, they have been improving the last couple of weeks. Obviously, they got that win over Stuttgart, and then they narrowly lost in Wolfsburg the week before the internationals. But nobody saw this one coming, did they? Obviously, this amazing 2-1 win over multiple reigning champions, Bayern Munich, top of the league, and they were looking really, really good, weren't they? But I mean, what a performance from Augsburg. I mean, they managed to win this game with 20% possession, So, I mean, it just proves that possession isn't everything, But I mean, the first goal, I guess it comes from like a poor clearance, really, doesn't it? And then that man, Peterson, it's a good finish, actually. He kind of drills it low past the goal. Just thinking, I mean, for me, the celebration from Weinzel, the Augsburg manager, was a little bit over the top, to be honest, in some ways, because it was like, I mean, it was a goal to go in front, but there were only 23 minutes on the clock at that time. And it was like, you were thinking, come on, Bayern is still probably going to win 4-1, But I mean, Ryan, they managed to hold out and get an amazing win, didn't they, really?
Yeah. I think for them, it's probably one of the best results they've had in the last few years. It's nice to see Reece Oxford doing well. As I said, I'm a West Ham fan, and he's one of our own, I'd say. I'll get a little name drop in there for him. I think overall, Bayern Munich have shown glimpses of this, though. I've watched them quite a lot in Champions League when they've played Benfica in the last 2 games, and they have let them have chances, and it just takes a team to take a chance, and they took their first chance, and that was it. That's all they needed, really.
Yeah, absolutely. The second goal coming from another good cross by Iago, who had a really good game, actually whipping in some very dangerous balls, headed home by Hahn. Another case, though, of another team. There's loads of injuries in the Bundesliga in general, actually, mixed in with, the COVID situation, of course, about non-vaccinated players. But, Augsburg were without Ruben Vargas, Finn Bogerson, and Niederlechner. So, obviously, none of them have really done it. But they're, generally speaking, the 3 players that you'd look to goals in Augsburg. And they're all missing, and they still obviously get the important wins. So, fair play to them. And, well done to them for responding after they went 2-0 up. Bayern did what they did and got back into the game very quickly. So you're kind of assuming, me and Mark were chatting, saying, 2-1 now, assume it's going to be a 4-2 win, 5-2 win. But they did a fine job. I think Davis came close a couple of times when he came on. But the keeper, Giekewitz, I think in net, did a fine job. They held out for a famous win to reignite their season, reignite the title race. So it was obviously a fine performance from them. Very quickly, before we move on to the topic or talking point of the week, Ryan, we always like to ask this. Title race, talking of it, only 1 point in it right now. Are you going to back Bayern as this being a blip, or do you think Dortmund might be able to smell a bit of blood?
No, I think season's over already. I think Dortmund, they might have won this weekend 2-1, but I think they're missing too many players at the moment, and they always have a blip during the season that is 2 or 3 games long, where Bayern have one blip, which is a game, and that's it. I think they will just probably come back next week and probably win 6-0. For me, that's what I think.
Yeah, they do always respond very well, to be fair. When they lost to Gladbach, shockingly, in the Pokal, they came back and showed their class. Maybe goes to show how vulnerable they are without their general midfielder in the shape of Joshua Kimmich. Obviously, he was missing. So, bit of a blip, but well done to Augsburg. Fine defensive display. And, yeah, very much needed win. They, quite rightly, as patriotic Irish says, they shafted a lot of people on fantasy football. I also gambled on my fantasy team and having a lot of Bayern players, which did not work out, which of course we'll go through on Thursday's show. Steve Irons very quickly said, bit of a West Ham link here for you, Ryan. Mine's also called the Irons. Is that correct? I know mine's as the 05ers. Mark, is that another nickname for them?
I don't believe it's correct. No, okay. Not that I know of. No, I mean, it could be. The main nickname is the 05ers, which basically means like the 05ers or the Carnavalsverein, which is like the carnival club, because I think Mainz is known as like the carnival capital of Germany or something, along with Cologne as well. Like Cologne and Mainz, they have like carnivals like every year, and they're known as like the carnival club as well. But I don't know about them being called the Irons, but maybe someone knows something else that I don't.
Yeah, quite possibly. We're always open to hearing new things. We'll have to look into that. Righty-ho, that is our featured forward done. So that can very swiftly move us on to this week's Bundesliga Boxes talking point of the week. So this week we've decided to go with the lines of, can Frankfurt turn around their season? So after back-to-back wins in between the international breaks, Frankfurt now have climbed up to 11th in the table. Have claimed, obviously, 2 wins in the last 2 games. adding to only one before that. So very quickly, let's kind of just get the general feelings on both sides of the panel this evening. We'll start with you, Ryan. What do you reckon to Frankfurt? Were you expecting more from them this season?
Yes and no, because I don't think they've got a striker that will score them the goals that they have in the past. They've always had a leading man that's going to score them 12, 15 goals a season, where I don't think they've got that this season. I think that defensively they're quite stern. Obviously the draws are saying that as well, but it's whether they can turn it around. I think. Let's see how many. I don't know who they've got next. If they can win two, 3 games in a row, then I think that yes, the momentum's going to be behind them. They're only actually 2 points behind us, so they're obviously not having a bad season, but they're not having a brilliant season.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the run of fixtures that they have, so I looked into it. So they do have a tough run of fixtures coming ahead. So their next 6 are Union Berlin, Hoffenheim, Leverkusen, Gladbach, Mainz, and Dortmund. So obviously on paper that's quite intimidating, but on the other side of it, Mark, if you win 4 out of 6 of those games, they're obviously teams that are immediately above you. Then the momentum can quickly shift, and then you can feel like a team that's dangerous again.
Yeah, I definitely think it's possible they could. It depends on, first of all, what you mean by turn the season around. I mean, obviously, the start of the year, they would have been looking for European places. Probably not Champions League, but I would say Europa League / Conference League would have been the goal, which means they'd have been going for like that 5th to 7th kind of positions. Probably the same kind of areas what Hoffenheim would have been going for as well. I think in that regard, I wouldn't say that they'll get 4 wins out of 6 from those games, to be honest. Because if you look at the squad, it does look quite significantly weaker than last season's, to be honest. I mean, obviously the main loss was Andre Silva. He's a massive loss, But I mean, also Eunice as well. He was also a really good player from last year. He had periods where he was pretty much unplayable, but he ended up signing for like some, I think, team in Dubai or something like that, which was a bit of a surprise.
Saudi Arabia or something, yeah.
Yeah. I was a bit shocked to see that because I thought he was really, really good. Obviously, Jovic, they managed to get on loan the second half of last season. They didn't manage to get him back despite trying. I mean, obviously, Rafael Borre was the kind of replacement for Silva, and I can understand why they went in for him. A similar kind of striker in some ways, but he's not really done it, let's be honest. I mean, he did get the winner at Fürth 2 weeks ago, but I mean, let's be honest, scoring against Fürth isn't exactly like a world beater, really. I mean, he is improving slowly but surely, but I don't think he's going to be that kind of Andre Silva level striker. I mean, Jesper Lindström was like the big signing over the summer, really. I think he's improving slowly but surely.
Yeah.
And I think also Daichi Kamada has had a much better last 2 or 3 games. I mean, he was so key last season, wasn't he? He had a really, really poor start to this season, but I think he's starting to play a lot better. But obviously the main man nowadays is that man, Filip Kostic. And I mean, he is like, for me, one of the best players in the Bundesliga, to be honest. And I was a little bit surprised he didn't get the move over the summer. But I think much depends on him, really, whether they do manage to turn the season around.
Righty-ho. So if we were going to say then that Frankfurt season being turned around would mean coming 7th place, let's just go around the table and say whether they think yes or no they will achieve that. So I'll start and say I don't think they'll come 7th and effectively turn the season around, if that's what we're saying. Right, Ryan, would you think that they'll be able to achieve that this season?
No, but I think maybe 10th and above. 10th maybe.
Not a problem, Mark. What do you reckon? Would they come 7th?
No, I would say probably between like 9th and 11th kind of area, I would say, for them.
Absolutely, yeah. I think a lot of it will, of course, depend on the form of Kostic, Kamada, and Dicker and Trapp, that kind of core, won't it? So, yeah, that's the end of our talking point of the week. Very quickly, before we close up the show, got another brilliant question in from Peter McRobert, who has asked Ryan, who in a future match between Hoffenheim and West Ham, who wins? So over to you, Ryan. Who does win?
Well, West Ham lost 1-0 to Wolves at the weekend, but have been flying high pretty well recently. Hoffenheim haven't been flying as high, but won at Leipzig at the weekend. So
tricky.
I'm on a Bundesliga show, so I should probably say Hoffenheim, but deep down, I am going to play West Ham at the moment. I think they've got stronger.
Tricky question, being put on the spot, but I like it. Very good question by Peter. Thank you very much for that. So pretty sure that will bring us to a close this evening. So our thanks very much so to Ryan for spending his precious time with us on a Monday evening. So Ryan, thank you very much for your first appearance, and hopefully we'll get you back in the future to be talking about high-flying Hoffenheim, maybe later on in the season or next season. We'll have to see, but thank you very much for coming on this evening's show.
Thanks very much. I'll probably see you at the end of next season and win the league.
Let's hope so. Let's hope so. Over to you, Mark, to close up the show.
Yeah, so if you enjoyed what you saw today, remember to check us out on Twitter. Obviously, we go live onto Twitter as well nowadays, so it's good to see we get pretty good numbers on there as well on our Twitter stream. So yeah, tell your friends about it if you enjoyed what you saw. Obviously, as you can see at the bottom of your screen, at Over the Bar FB and at Over the Bar Extra. Yeah, also remember to check out our main site as well, which is otbfootball.net. You can see also we do a lot of written articles as well. Remember, I think, Ryan, you actually write for us a little bit, right, as well?
Yeah, I've written a few pieces on my page, so I can send them over to you.
On your own page as well, yeah. So remember, also check that out as well. Do you want to introduce what your own page is, Ryan, as well?
It's just on Twitter handle, which you can find them all there. If you're on the transfers and a bit on Kramaric and De Boer.
Yeah, great. Yeah. So as you can see, I believe this is your Twitter as well, right? At Hoffenheim U. So yeah, if you want to follow obviously Ryan on there, Ryan of Hoffenheim Fan Club UK at Hoffenheim U. So you can check out all of his articles about the club on there. Yeah. And obviously also remember to check out the rest of our productions as well, which is obviously League One and League Two show. And yeah, obviously like, comment and subscribe below. We have been slowly kind of improving our subs as well. I think we're up to around 400 now, right, Rory? So obviously, we're getting there slowly but surely, you know. It's But thanks again to Ryan for joining us for the show. Yeah, hope to see you again soon. And see the rest of you guys on Thursday for our fantasy football and predictions. So see you then.
See you then. Cheers all.